record. Here goes the encoder. And we're up and running. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, I guess it's me. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our second part of tonight's episode.
Wait, was that the plan? I don't think that was the plan. Is that the plan? I don't know what the plan was.
It is right now. So we did our first episode of 90 Day Fiancé. If you want to listen to that, it's on streaming services at some point. But right now, we are going to talk about...
It's Trash Pandas 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yes, exactly. We are going to be talking about The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. It is about the Elisa Lam story.
I'm just gonna start doing shots now because Tink, I'm gonna need him to make it through this one.
It's gonna be quite the thing. So if you guys have any comments, please go ahead and leave them, and we will be reading them as we go. If you got something cool to say, I might say it out loud. I'll decide. So that's that.
All viewer replays are at the host discretion. All right, so yeah, it's called The Vanishing, or is it? No, it's Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I have been interested in this case since 2013.
So yeah, it's a total. I remember this is recent enough. Like I remember, like this is like we talked. Like the Night Stalker was like the mid '80s, and like y'all were way too young for that. But like even that's like not even a thing for me. But yeah, this one I absolutely remember happening. Yeah, and I remember like all the weirdness around it, and I remember and so I was like, and I'm not gonna lie, because I remembered how it wrapped up, and so I was like, okay, so how are they gonna get 4-hour-long episodes out of this story?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Little did I know.
Yeah, well, the thing is it wrapped up, but it didn't wrap up with the people following it because they didn't believe what was happening.
Well, that's on them. And so, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and throw a little disclaimer out here, folks. If you're one of those like QAnon weebs, or like you're a big, like you're like the really, really, really off, like if you believe the Earth is flat, like you're probably not going to want to listen to this episode because I'm gonna light you up over the course of this episode, and I'm not going to lie. Because what Lindsay was just saying, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like this is very interwoven with people getting involved that had no business being involved as deeply as they did, and really going places they had no business going, both physically and in the online space. It's something like there's a lot, like if you've ever dealt like with harassment online and that kind of stuff, this might be a little triggering for you. If you've ever gone swimming in a water tower, this might be a little triggering for you. So there's your trigger warnings, and away we go.
Too soon. But the thing is what's interesting about this case is like we've always had people be too involved, too invested, say too much, come out with their pitchforks for a bunch of murder cases. And the interesting thing about this one is like they talk about like the video going viral, the video of her in the elevator going viral. And so I think this is the first time we really have like those armchair detectives, like those web
the web sleuths, as they call it, the web sleuths.
Or we haven't always had, but we've had, you know, for years leading up to this, we had Nancy Grace, who everyone hates. And we've had
you had your CNN pundits, you had your, you know, Larry Kings, you had your, you know, the people that were on the news doing this kind of stuff. But yeah, now you truly have amateurs with no credentials whatsoever, and just an internet connection doing their thing.
Right.
So I was gonna say to open so this is all about Elisa Lam, and I guess that's the part that should not be overshadowed and forgotten because she is the poor soul that died during the course of all this. She was a 21-year-old woman who lived in Canada. In fact, she lived in Vancouver, and speaking of internet, she was really into Tumblr.
Yeah.
And
she had like a kind of diary.
Well, and I get it. Like I remember like internet circa 2013, there was that whole okay, what's the internet going to be? And you had like the microblogging sites, and you had you had Facebook, was out there, but wasn't what it was yet today, or wasn't yet what it is today. So like Tumblr was kind of a go-to. A lot of people use it as a journal, and so it's really not a surprise that's what she was doing.
Right.
Yep. She's in
Yeah,
college. She's like every other young adult trying to figure out who she is, where she belongs in the world. That's really what her Tumblr posts lead us to believe. Like, she's wanting to go travel, and she wants to meet people, and she wants to go on this West Coast tour, which is what eventually sets her up for leaving Vancouver and landing finally in LA.
Yep. Yeah. And like she had, and she went to like San Diego and hopped around there for a couple days, went to San Francisco, and then went to LA. And this was, just like part of it. And I think we've all kind of, at some point, if I know I did at least 2 trips like that, when I was in my early 20s, where I was just like, I just need to GTFO, and kind of figure out where my head's at, what I'm doing, and where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And cool. And so like, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's just, it kind of makes sense. And so she winds up, I believe it's January 26th, if I recall correctly, she winds up in LA, and checks into the Cecil Hotel. And then everything is all fine and good. And she checks in with her family every day. And then on February 1st, she gone.
Yeah, she's officially missing. I think January 31st was the last time that her family had heard from her. And they were thinking that she could be hurt or in danger, and has no history of like weird behavior, such as like running away or not contacting her family.
Yep. And so this is where we meet Tim Marcia. I can't remember, was it Marcia or was it Tim Marcia? I can't, because I
thought it was Marsha.
I think it could have been Marcia. Marcia.
I was going back and forth between that. I was like, Marsha, Marcia, who knows?
Yeah, I was like, because I don't remember how he said it, and I don't want to be that guy. But so, hey, you know what? I'm going with Marcia. He's remember that he's on the LAPD. And he's like, look, like this is, okay, this is a 21-year-old girl who's from out of the country, hugely high profile case. We get the call about it. There's 18 detectives assigned to it, and like this is instantly a thing, and they're like, okay, and here's all the things that start running through our head. And it's kind of, this was the one thing I liked, is you got both the good and the bad over the course of the episode about what goes through cops' heads. Sure. When they're looking at something like this, because he's like, okay, well, what, is it, was there a crime committed? Has she been in an accident?
Right. Is she disoriented or lost?
Does she just not want to be found? Because yeah, like, does she just not want to talk to her family? And I guess, those are real concerns. And this is where we get the introduction to the Cecil Hotel.
We also meet at this time Amy Price, who is the general manager of the hotel at the time, and she is the general manager for 10 years. And during the course of her missing, they say that the hotel was extremely cooperative. They let them in to, do everything that they have to do. So she checked in. So I actually think on my notes,
so she was supposed to check out the day she disappeared.
Right. So on my notes, I said that she checked in on January 28th.
Okay.
And she was supposed to be there for a 4-day stay. I could have that wrong, but I'm just saying she was supposed to be there for 4 days. And she's kind of like living, or while she's there, she's staying in like a community, like dorm style, women's floor on the 6th floor.
Yeah, they had her. She was in a what they called a bunk room at first.
Bunk room, yeah. Kind of like a hostel where it's like you share a room.
I get people. It, but if I ever check into a hotel and they put me in a room with bunk beds, I'm gonna have conversations with people.
Or you have to go to the bathroom down the hall.
Yeah, I don't care what I'm paying for. I just know, like,
very European.
Yeah.
And that's what they were going for, which we'll find out later, is that is, they wanted to make it like a young hostel for people to come.
Well, there's a lot of people that come in out of that area, and they were saying that, like they wanted it to be like a place where people could, like, they're traveling there, they stay for a couple of days, then they move on to like wherever they're going.
Right. So, yeah, because all they're looking is for like a clean place to crash. Like it's, hey, I want someplace I can sleep and take a shower, and who cares about anything else? Yeah, which
exactly. Like I don't intend on spending most of my time in my hotel room.
Right.
I just need somewhere to shower, shit, and sleep.
Wait, girls poop? What?
No, we don't. It's actually just butterflies and rainbows.
But yeah, so when the cops get there, they get to the hotel and they find out that, yeah, so she was supposed to have checked out. And as per hotel policy, they cleaned up all of her crap out of the room, and put it in storage. And
I don't understand why they didn't think it was weird, because they said that they found things of like personal value, like her laptop, her medications, valuable items.
Oh yeah,
including
her
wallet,
purse,
all of her clothes.
Yeah,
her purse.
Yeah.
So,
But in context, Richard Ramirez used to walk through there in his underwear and
we're not there yet. But I
what I'm saying.
I loved that flashback. Yeah.
I'm saying that's why they didn't find it weird.
right.
Well, and she even said,
she
she's
was
like,
like you would be surprised at things that people.
oh yeah, they're like,
forget,
dude, we
and
found a giant snake in a bathtub at one point that people left behind. And I do, and I love those posts. There's one every year that the Metro in DC does, where it's like, look, here's the list of all the crap that has gone unclaimed over the course of this year. So if you think this is weird, one year somebody had left behind a prosthetic leg. Like, how do you not notice that you've left a prosthetic leg behind on the subway? So that's, it's a thing. Like, I get it.
So
But
at this
yeah,
point, we meet Mike and Sabina Baugh and their hotel guests. I can't remember where they're from.
they're from Plymouth, UK.
Okay.
They're from jolly old England. They're from jolly old England.
They decide
Yeah.
that they're going to come to LA on a little holiday, and they go to this hotel because it was cheap. And as soon as they get there, they're like, it's beautiful outside, and they go inside, and the lobby is described as grand and beautiful, and they're like, oh, it's so great. But from the elevator on, everything was completely like decrepit.
Oh yeah, they were like, the elevators, you're immediately back in the 1980s.
Exactly.
And then they got in their room and they were like, oh, the description of the room was horrific. They were like, everything's dusty. The floor was grimy and sticky. Like, I like
the sticky carpet part was weird, because they were like, you had to like basically lift your feet.
I'm like, eh.
I worked at a bar where the carpet there was like that.
Okay, but a bar is one thing. Those are spilled drinks. A hotel room.
No, that's like a whole bunch of other spilled fluids.
Yeah, exactly.
So...
like, never ever walk in with a black light.
Yeah, Lindsay.
Don't walk in the Cecil hotel with black light under any circumstances.
Right. So, and like everything's like, so they decide, they're like, yeah, the room's a piece of shit, but whatever. Like, we're just looking for a place to crash and take showers and stuff. Let's go out and hit the town. So they go out and they start walking around, and they're from England. They're in downtown LA. They get a little disoriented, turned around, have no idea where they are. And so they start asking people, hey, how do we get back to the Cecil Hotel? And people look at them like, why in the ever living God would you want to go there? Like, why would you want to go to the Cecil Hotel? And so they're like, okay, this is our first inclination that we have made a bad decision. Because people were like, look, that place is a shithole. Oh, by the way, because I guess they started their stay there a little bit after she had disappeared. Because they were like, oh yeah, like somebody apparently reaches over and pulls down one of the missing posters with Elisa Lam on it, and they were like, oh yeah, she went missing from there. Like, they didn't know, nobody knows what happened to her, and they were like, oh, this is great.
And they decide to stay, which I'm like, that's fucking crazy. So,
well, but I mean, again, you're from out of the country, you're already in a place. Like, how do you know that you're going to go someplace else that's any better? Like,
right. So
Yeah.
the investigators start asking people from the hotel about Elisa, whether or not they had seen her, interacted with her, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the place has like 50 employees that they all have to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Santiago Lopez, who is like their head of maintenance. And he says that that she was always with a book and she looked like a student.
Mm-hmm.
And Elisa was in the area that guests couldn't be in, and that they said to leave, and she goes towards the elevators, and that's like the last time that they see her. Right.
And so, so the cops are like, hey, there's no leads, there's no anything. And so here's the one thing that this documentary does a really good job of, is it's really good at leading you down the path of, oh, well, this person's guilty. And so, like, this is the first time in the documentary where they're like, oh, well, reading through her Tumblr post, She's looking for adventure. She's asking people, to meet up and recommendations. So she's open to meeting with strangers. Did she bring this on herself? And I'm like, okay, so are we victim blaming now?
And she
Like, so
goes
now
to
it's
a
her
taping
fault.
of a TV show.
Right.
So it's
So,
like,
like,
you're expecting to meet people there.
Oh yeah. So I'm like, now you're blaming her.
I think I don't think it's victim blaming as much as what they're pointing out is she was looking for this stuff and maybe naive to the fact of the location that she was in, because obviously we'll talk more about it, but she's on Skid Row, and it's the worst place in LA to be. And so I think like what they're setting us up to say is like not so much blaming her, but that she was naive to the circumstances or her situation.
Right. Because and this is where they dive into the history of the Cecil a little bit, where it was built in 1924 for $1 million. Which that's a lot of money now, but that's a lot of money 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's also unique in the fact that it has 700 rooms. Like that's a lot of rooms, for a place like that, especially back in 1924. It was designed, like you were saying earlier, to be a traveler's hotel. They specifically point out this is not a luxury hotel. This is a place that you kind of, it was designed for like workers.
You stay for a night or two.
Right. People that were coming off the train, that kind of thing. Like that's
it's
what
very
was
not
designed.
Expensive. I think that at one point some guy says that he was staying there for like $2 or $3 a night.
Oh yeah, that was in the 80s and 90s.
In like
yeah.
the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. And so the Depression hits because 1924 is right before the Depression, and everything goes to hell. That entire area of LA just goes to complete and total shit, and it basically becomes a flop house. People staying there, for at that dollars if that, and just bad. And that's when the guy from the 80s, he's like, oh yeah, 80s and 90s, I'd stay there for $2-3 a night. There's drugs, there's robberies, there's hookers. Yeah.
So
it's basically, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, before we were told about the context of the Cecil Hotel, they gave us a little bit of background about Elisa, that she's one of 2 daughters from an immigrant family from Hong Kong. And they own a restaurant in Vancouver. And she was at university. I wrote down that it's later on
University of British Columbia. Yep.
Yeah, University of British Columbia. They also mentioned she had like an itinerary. Like this wasn't just a completely random.
Oh yeah, no, she had mapped out where she was going. Absolutely.
Yeah. So she was, like you mentioned before, in San Diego before LA, and she had written like she was clearly into going out. She wanted to meet people. And then they also tell us right before the Cecil stuff that the last bookstore was where she went right before she disappeared. That was the last place she was before the Cecil Hotel.
Right.
And that the bookstore worker remembered her being in there because she was asking about the books that she had ordered and how to get them home and whether or not she would be able to carry them. And then she orders them. And at this point, she was missing for 5 days when they interview the bookstore worker.
Right.
So back to like the Cecil Hotel history, though, they were saying that it was just filled with like a bunch of undesirables.
Well, so and then they take a break in the history and they break to February 6th. The LAPD holds a press conference, and the mom and dad and sister are there, but they don't speak.
Her dad's face breaks.
Yeah,
I know.
Heart. It is just, you can just see the anguish and pain in her family's face. It's so devastating.
Well, because you're 5 days out from her being missing now, and I think we've all watched enough Criminal Minds. First it's the first 48 hours that are the most important. So once you're at day 5, assumptions start getting made.
Good.
Not looking.
So yeah, she has no communication with her parents for 6 days at this point, and they go ahead and do a snippet from her Tumblr where she says, "I'd be fine with a stranger talking to me, but I take things too far and I have no filter." She also follows up by saying, "My mouth is my downfall and often gets me in trouble."
I don't know anyone like that. I don't.
It kind of paints a picture of like what she's like and how she obviously wants to like make friends and meet new people and everything, but she feels like she like almost like pushes people away by being
or self-sabotages. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
But yeah,
that
so
was interesting to me.
yep. So then they dive right back in to, you know, how basically, okay, so the whole area around the Cecil Hotel or Hotel Cecil, whatever, is just shit.
Which I had no idea how big this area was. 56 blocks.
Yeah, I was also shocked by that.
Is Skid Row. And then it's one of the poorest areas in the entire world.
Yep. And it's been that way for over 100 years.
And they
then,
have 8,000 to 10,000 homeless individuals living within this
just
area.
on Skid Row.
And almost all homeless services in LA are located within this area.
Yep. All the missions and shelters are there. Yep.
So it's just a dumping ground for the city, for homeless people.
Well, no, literally, because if you get out of prison, jail, or a mental facility, the bus drops you off there.
It's like, this is the part that makes me the most angry.
Yeah.
It's our systematic failure of how we treat homeless people.
Well, because they even said it was from the LA City. Yeah, it was the LA City Council. This was their plan to build it out this way, and for this to be that. Yeah.
Didn't we do this in Detroit one time?
Yeah, I mean, L. Brooks Patterson wanted to go a little further, but yeah.
I remember.
So yeah, they have this policy of containment, and police are there with barriers, literally stopping people from leaving Skid Row. And then they just said within the boundaries, it's a free for all. There's drugs, there's prostitution, there's a ton of criminal activity. And people are allowed to just suffer. And there really is no help for them.
No.
And they start looking through this area for people of interest on Skid Row because they feel like she might have been a victim of a crime or something because of the area that she's in.
Oh, yeah. Well,
they said the area manifests crime and violence.
Well, yeah, because one of the things they talk about is it's not just the drug use, it's the unchecked and untreated mental illness in the population there that leads, like you've basically created an area where you can't help but have violence happen. Like it's inevitable. And so, but then they go back to the hotel and they're like, okay, yeah. So we got all the camera footage. And they kind of, and this is one of those things where like being in the tech world and you guys have worked in like bars and that kind of stuff before, you understand it. They kind of bitch about like the camera angles and how the camera placement isn't that great. And the resolution on some of the cams isn't that great. Okay, well, we're talking about 2013 here. Like we're watching this doc in 2020 where, like I can have a Nest cam that can pick a face out from 50 feet away or 100 feet away, and that kind of stuff. But like in 2013, no, you didn't have 4K HD cams, especially not at a rundown friggin' hotel. So these were probably like Gen 1 piece of crap. I'm surprised the footage was as good as it was. For what they had. And they talk about he talks about how basically they had to sit there and they were trying to they had to watch minute by minute footage, and they watched it for 20 hours a day, trying to find any trace of her. They find her in the elevator, and we'll talk about the elevator footage in a sec, and they're like, okay, so now we know when she's in the elevator. And then so they start scanning forward and discover that, okay, she never left the hotel.
Right. And Price says that in the 10 years of being the general manager there, she's made thousands of 911 calls. And the police even say that they on a regular basis would have 2 to 3 calls a day coming from the Cecil Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
To back it up for 1 second, Cecil Hotel is an alternative apartment living for people who don't want to be found, can't put a deposit down, or just got out of prison.
Yep. So, yeah. Can't pass a background check, that kind of stuff. Yep.
Yeah. So LA has like this weird law policy thing where certain hotels are designated as. Yeah,
they actually. Yeah, they talked about that a little bit. It was zoned partially as a residential hotel. Yeah. And so they had to maintain that because they'll get into that. We didn't skip over that, did we? I didn't think we talked about that. No, it
comes later.
Yeah. So okay.
But basically, just kind of lets us know that there are sketchy individuals residing within this hotel.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of the calls that they get were for like domestic violence, ODs, fights, stabbings. They found a body in August, peeping toms, and other things such as that.
Oh yeah, the girls were talking about getting spied on in the shared showers and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh yeah. So you've got, you know, the long-term tenants that are basically whatever. You've got the, you know, the short-term criminals that are, you know, using that as their first stop out of jail. And then you've got tourists that have no idea what the hell they're walking into. And again, you've kind of created an environment that's just, insane. And so they decide, okay, so she's never left the hotel. We have to search the entire hotel. So, you know what? I give them credit. They did, because it's 14 floors, but there's no 13th floor. And so they do. And so I thought the hotel manager was like, we've got 600 closets. And the cops are like, well, yeah, we're going to search them all. That's how that goes.
And that included the lockers in the basement. Oh
yeah. So like, and the maintenance guy was like, yep, they had me go every floor, go through and open up the doors to every room, every closet, every bathroom, everything. And they basically talked about this grid search they conducted through this hotel, looking anywhere that you could find a body.
Yeah, it's really impressive how much energy and resources they dedicated to this, because a lot of times we see like these missing persons and we see cops go, well, you know, they're young, they want to be missing, or that, you know what I mean? Like,
they'll turn up.
Right, it's dismissed, but in this case, they took it very seriously.
Yeah, I think they said they had 14 people doing the floor by floor sweep.
Yeah,
they did 14 people.
Detectives assigned to this one case in LA. I mean, there's a lot of crime happening. So
they were asking when the garbage goes out, and then they eventually actually bring in scent tracking dogs.
Oh, that was because the hotel, like even the hotel manager was like, she was like, really? You think she might have gone out in a dumpster? Damn. Like,
It wouldn't be the first time something like that has happened, though. So it's like they're thinking about all avenues of how she could have been inside of the building and never have footage of her leaving, but not be in the building anymore.
And this, kids, is why these are actual police officers and detectives.
Right.
And why
especially in this area.
And why the motards that we're going to talk about later are not.
I thought it was super interesting too that the scent tracking dog actually picked up her scent and followed it all the way down to that window.
I also thought that was interesting. And then just
lost the scent, and I was like, ooh, goosebumps. Like, that's crazy.
I know. But it's weird to me that they didn't bother to be like, let's see what's past this window, though, because they clearly show that there's a fire escape right out there.
Right.
So why didn't the police go, okay, let's open this window and see what happens?
Also, why didn't they bring the dog up to the roof that I'm going to say, quote unquote, searched?
Right.
Because here's where they didn't do a great job.
So they did well. So actually, some of the footage, the news camera footage that they had, did show them up there with dogs.
Oh, well.
Oh, I totally missed that. I also thought that was weird.
See, I caught that my second time around, because that was one of the things I wanted to look for.
But they search the roof and they don't find anything.
Right.
The next day, LAPD goes on tack alert because of Christopher Dorner.
Dude, and this is weird because I remember when this LL Cool J looking motherfucker, like all of a sudden was on, because I thought it was LL Cool J. Like I remember waking up in the morning and there's this dude and they're like, attacks the LAPD, and I'm like, dude, did LL snap? Like what?
That is so
the
funny.
Christopher Dorner story, if you're not acquainted with it, go read about it. It is nuts. Like, he waged a full-on war
against and he was a former cop.
Yeah. And so this happens, and so everyone goes into that investigation because they have to. I mean, it's like dire.
Right.
So they go from 18 detectives to 4 on Elisa's case. Basically, they realize they need the public's help. So they release the elevator footage that they have of her.
And
this is where we're introduced to one of many YouTubers, John Lorden. And he talks about the fact that it's a 4-minute video. We see her go into the elevator. She like bends over and she hits all of the center buttons.
And the way that she bent over was kind of weird to me because she bends over at like a right angle. Like she's just like,
all of her gestures are very
bad girls bend at the waist. We all know this.
all of her gestures are very, what am I trying to say? Exaggerated. Yeah.
So, or they look jerky, or they look a little weird. And absolutely. And this is where, you know, they start getting into like that. Oh, you know, is there something paranormal going on? Is she communicating with spirits because we can't see anybody else? And and this, then we meet the next guy, John Dipshit Sabani. And I'm sorry, the nickname is my own. But yeah, John Dipshit Sabani.
Is he the dentist?
He's the dental student. Excuse me, the unemployed dental student, as we'll get into in a moment, who describes himself as a web sleuth.
Well, before we do that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the video to explain to people. So like Lindsay said, the door's open, she walks in, she presses the center row of buttons, and then she moves to the corner. She pokes her head out and looks both ways. She retreats back to the corner. She looks out the door again, steps out of the elevator in like kind of like a jumping, like she kind of like jumps with both feet out of
kind of a time warp. It's just a jump to the left.
Right. And then she starts taking these steps, kind of like they describe it as like square dancing. So she's kind of like step to the side, step back, step to the side, step forward. And for a minute there, you only see just her arm. And the doors of the elevator aren't closing at all.
Yeah.
Right.
She re-enters the elevator in kind of a weird way. She's kind of like holding on to both doors. She kind of looks like maybe she's like, I'm confused. And then she starts pressing every button on the elevator again and running her fingers through her hair. Her hand movements are erratic, and she's kind of like making these big gestures. It's almost the weird thing about it too, watching the video, and it's very, very weird, the entire thing watching it. But the way that she's talking, like, you know, when you talk with your hands, you kind of do one of these. But for her, it's like she's doing this like scrunched, like weird outward gestures.
Very, very sort of like, who are these people? Like, what do you want?
It's like these weird outward, contorted, like her hands look contorted.
It looks like you can't see because we can only see her right outside of the elevator. It looks like she's talking to someone.
It totally does, yeah.
And then she exits and goes to the left and she disappears and she's gone. She's only in the 4-minute video for about 2.5 minutes.
Right.
And then suddenly the elevator doors close and the elevator continues as normal. You see it going up the floors.
Yep. No, wait, the door shuts and then it opens again.
Right.
On the same floor.
Yes. And then
then no one's there. And then it shuts and then it moves on. So if you haven't seen the video, I would highly recommend going to YouTube and Google Elisa Lam elevator. It went viral. This video went viral.
And then this is where we meet John Sabani. And you know what? I'm going to go for alcohol poisoning tonight. I'm going to take a shot every time I say web sleuth. Tink.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And yeah, I have John Sabani, quote unquote, web sleuth, GFY.
Right.
Yeah. And so, and that's it.
I understand the fascination with the video. It's eerie.
You do. I watched it.
No. Let's not misunderstand. I'm not making fun of anyone who got interested in this. I'm not making fun of anyone who thought it was fascinating. But anyone who describes themselves as a web sleuth like it's a job title, I have problems.
Yeah, like where are you getting your paychecks from? Because
I'm pretty sure this whole thing was filmed in his mom's library. Because and then episode 2, which is The Secrets of the Cecil. Chung chung.
So in the first couple of days of Price being on the job, she's told by the maintenance people that they have a problem, and she is finally told that a guest has died. And this is like
she's been there 3 days and there's a dead guest.
It's her first experience dealing with that. She's never had to deal with police. She's never had to deal with a coroner. She's never had to deal with, some just dead bodies in general. And so it's very shocking to her. And then when she's like talking to the maintenance guy about it, apparently this happens all the time. And the maintenance manager is walking her through the hotel, just pointing out places that
someone committed suicide there. Somebody got shot there.
Like,
somebody got stabbed.
Is there a place where somebody hasn't died?
Right. Is there a room in this hotel that someone hasn't died? And here's my question. Like, I wonder why. Okay, like if you're selling your house and someone died in the house, you have to disclose that. Like, why is it? Oh yeah. Why is it that like if you're checking into a hotel room, they don't have to disclose to you that someone died in that room?
Because that's where they keep a Bible in the drawer.
Oh, to keep the spirits away? I thought that's where. I thought that's where the recording devices were.
So technically, every single room is actually just like a funeral home. Right. Because there's a fucking Bible in the drawer, so you
seriously,
can kind of bless it yourself if you want.
Like that thought. As she's talking about the guy walking around, I'm like, what, man? I've stayed in a lot of hotels over the years, and like, I want to know if someone died. Bring
your own sage situation.
I'm going to from now on. God. So now we're back to John Lorden. Who wants everyone to know that YouTuber is a word. It's in the dictionary, people. And so it's okay that he calls himself that. And he starts talking about the web sleuth community. Sorry. And this is where we meet. And I don't like making fun of people's names, but I thought this was funny. Her name is Dr. Judy Ho, and she is a woman who is wearing enough makeup that she could have been walking the street. I'm just saying it. But she's a clinical psychologist. Like, she's a doctor. She's a real, and she's the one that provides a lot of really good insight in the 4th episode into some of this stuff. But I just found it funny. So yeah, they're talking about the web sleuth community dives in, and they start like really diving into her Tumblr, and like
the video of her inside of the elevator goes viral at this point, and it gets international attention, and it gets over 25 million views.
Which in 2013, very rare. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah, it's like the first viral video.
Yeah,
like in real life. So like you were saying, they go into her Tumblr and they're talking about how her Tumblr is very artsy and she really likes reading and reflecting on her
Here's
life.
This picture of Bowie, and she's obsessed with Harry Potter, and
right. Yeah. It seems like she's very God, I can't think of the word now, but she just enjoys being part of her own mind.
She's very open. Like, she doesn't have a filter when it comes to what she's putting on Tumblr.
Right.
Which, I mean, in some cases, dude, I've said before, like, dude, some people use Facebook like it's a diary, which I don't understand. But at least
that's why we have LiveJournal.
Right. But at least she wasn't using it like fake book. Like, she wasn't posting only the good stuff. Like, she posted about, when she was having struggles with stuff, and when, and what she was hoping for and what she was looking for.
Her Tumblr basically reveals that she has bipolar and she suffers from depression.
Yeah, she's apparently on bipolar.
She's treatment and begins taking antidepressants. She talks about it openly on her Tumblr, like, these pills I call the breakfast of champions and stuff. She's making light of it. She's talking about it openly. People are aware that she's already struggling with these things and that she's trying to seek treatment for it. So because of that video, though, they start to suspect that she might be on LSD or other mind-altering drugs.
Oh yeah, so yeah, we're back to so it's so she looks stable on her feet. She's not drunk, but is she on LSD? And then it's and again, let's point fingers at someone, so there's a lot of drugs in the area, and if she like walked more than like 30 feet out of the front door of the hotel, someone's going to be offering her heavy narcotics.
Well, they also said she's a 21-year-old, so it's expected that she would go out and experiment. And I was like, that's not like a thing that every 21-year-old does.
Right.
It's not like suddenly she just.
No, but if you're exploring any and all possibilities.
Sure. But they do touch down on her Tumblr where she says, I don't drink alcohol, I don't do drugs.
Yeah.
And she says that,
Oh, yeah, maybe
exactly,
if I did, yeah.
She does say something along the lines of like, if I wonder if me being so, not experimenting with those things has like closed me off from experiencing life in a different way.
Right.
And, so she was sharing a room with these other girls and she had to be separated because of her behavior.
Oh, wait.
And her behavior. I'm sorry?
I don't think we're there yet.
Oh, that's the next thing on my notes. So, but okay, you guys go ahead then.
The next thing I have is Amy Price is talking about the gentrification of downtown LA.
Okay.
And so this is where we see that the hotel sold in 2007 for $26 million. And she's hired as a general manager to come in and fix it up. And basically the idea is to make this hotel like Best Western-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or to have it bought by a Best Western or somebody like that. Yeah.
So they had 30 to 40 tenants at that time, and they wanted to evict those people, but they find out very quickly that they cannot. The city stops them from doing so.
Yeah, they get a stop work order. Yep.
It's a part of this residential hotel program that they have going on Skid Row. And so then it talks a little bit about
shame on the lawyers for whoever bought that building that didn't find that out.
Didn't say that to them. Yeah.
I know. That is stupid. Yeah, you would think that's definitely in the contract.
Yeah.
That's definitely in the contract. So then they talk about, Amy talks about how there's pretty much consistent deaths at the hotel. Dude, and
in the 10 years she was there, 80 people died.
Yeah.
So that's one like every month and a half. Put that in perspective.
Everyone in this documentary literally describes it as a hotbed for death.
Yeah. So the Cecil has had this dark persona since the 30s. And it started with suicides and then moved to murders. And basically in the 80s, things got a lot worse at the Cecil Hotel.
Dude, the one I felt bad for is in 1962, the woman decides she's done fighting with her husband, throws herself out the window, and lands on a dude that's just minding his own business, walking by, and takes him out too.
Yeah.
And in 1964, Goldie Osgood was attacked and raped and stabbed and strangled.
Pigeon Goldie.
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously this place, I think that 1931 was the first suicide that they had found. Yep. He slashed his own neck, I think.
Yep.
Or maybe he shot himself. But it was like the earliest reported suicide for them.
Yeah, and then they go to that one guy who's was the same guy who was saying, oh yeah, the 80s, 90s, $2 to $3 a night. He's like, yeah, you don't go above the 6th floor. He said above the 6th floor is where all the bad shit happens. And this is where you hear the quote was, hey, this is where serial killers go to let their hair down. And then we have a flashback, kids.
Richard Ramirez, he stayed there on the 14th floor. And he would walk in the hotel in bloodstained underwear, barefoot, back up to his room in the Cecil.
Yep.
And I just wrote, what the fuck?
Well, how did nobody ever go like, this is weird?
Well, so when I wrote what the fuck, because like I was curious, because, okay, again, this is one of those things where I'm like, and we've talked about this before, almost all of these documentaries could be a lot shorter. Like, let's be honest. This could have been a single episode. If they would have tightened shit up, maybe two. I'd have been okay with 2. I'm angry that it was 4. I'd have been okay with 2. So why they spent 5 minutes showing all the some of the video footage that we just talked about in the Night Stalker documentary, like all the interviews with the people on the street about how afraid they were and while that case was going on. Okay, why did you waste 5 minutes of your documentary talking about that? Your case is like, this doc is not about that case.
Right.
Like, that's
the one thing that
just to show like how sketchy the Cecil Hotel was.
Right.
that Richard Ramirez felt comfortable enough just walking with blood-soaked underwear through the hotel. Like, it just shows you how completely crazy this hotel is.
Right.
But honestly,
they're like, just another day.
right. Well, and here's the best part about this. They go back to the hotel manager, and what's her biggest concern? The bad reviews they're getting on TripAdvisor.
Right. And here's the thing, is she is like obsessed with this hotel though. She's just like, it's not a bad place. And I'm like,
dude, you gotta give her credit. Like she was at least dedicated and like she was in. Like she
and to make it 10 years after on your third day somebody gets killed or not killed but dies there.
I'd have been out day 3.
Nope.
Oh yeah, I'd have been done. Yeah. That'd have been my check, please. Moment. You're gone.
So this is the part that kind of made me confused, and so I wanted to ask you guys about it. But I know that it was rebranded as the Stay on Main.
Okay?
No. So they decided to open a hotel within the hotel.
Within the hotel, yes. Yeah. But like they were like trying to rebrand, like not necessarily rebrand, but like kind of give it like a. Well, there's also this.
So what this is you know how like, and people have been bitching about this. Like if you go on like Grubhub or like DoorDash, you'll see like Your City Wings. Okay. Yeah. And you're like, oh, cool. Like it's someplace local. I'm going to support it. And you order from there and you show up and they show up and it's effing Applebee's.
Right. Yeah.
And people are like, well, if I'd known it was Applebee's, I wouldn't have ordered the damn wings, but you had this other name on it. So what the hell? So that's what they're basically trying to do here is create this concept within the overall hotel where like they create separate entrances, separate lobbies.
Yeah.
The first
two elevators.
Well, yeah. So the first 2 floors are where they put their residential tenants. Floors 3 through 5 are for the Stay on Main folks. And then above that are all the normal, usual Cecil Hotel degenerates.
Lindsay, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that like they were trying to market it as like a youth hostel. And they'd add like, they didn't have money basically to redo everything, but they did cosmetic changes.
Paint and bread spreads.
The question I was going to ask about that though, is because I might have misunderstood it, and that's why I want to ask. But they sounded like they said that she had booked her stay at Stay on Main.
Yes, and so we get to that. Yep,
she did.
And then they have the 2 separate lobbies and entrances, and the 3 floors would be Stay on Main, and then common elevators to the Stay on Main. And because of that, they have people that are part of the Cecil Hotel, which are like the more undesirables, and they're trying to like have this really nice. They repainted. They did this bright orange color, and they had this really beautiful lobby and everything. And then, so my question is, if she was on the 6th floor, which we know is not part of Stay on Main.
No, she was on the 5th floor.
Oh, she was on the 5th floor.
Yes.
I have it written down as the 6th floor.
Yep.
Okay. So that's why I was confused, because I was like, why was she on the Cecil if she was at Stay on Main? All right, you guys figured it out for me. But they do have common elevators, so you get these undesirable people in the same area. You might have to share an elevator with somebody who's on the
tweaking
14th floor.
Yeah.
Exactly, tweaking out and everything.
Or a serial killer from the 14th floor. Hey,
and then that's when they say that they think that maybe she wasn't equipped to handle that.
Right.
So
it's because again, it's if you know that it's Applebee's, you're not going to order from Applebee's. So if you know it's this piece of shit hotel, you might not have stayed there. But because it was branded as something else and it was getting great reviews because of the people that were staying there in a hostel, the hostel, not hostile environment. And okay, so great. You think it's this perfectly safe thing downtown when in reality it's almost like Hamtramck, the city within a city. It's the hotel within the hotel.
Right.
Yeah. So young people were staying there and they did like this Stay on Main. I don't know how. Did TripAdvisor not exist at this time? Because
no, it did because that was her whole point, was that they created separate listings, and so they were getting great reviews on TripAdvisor. Because again, if you have a separate entrance, you have a separate address.
Yeah, but usually on TripAdvisor, someone's like, the surrounding area.
Or like, this is actually this same hotel, you know? Just like
Lindsay,
you were saying,
2013 was a simpler time.
Like you were saying, Dave, it's like they say like, oh, Pascal's or whatever, and it's like Chuck E. Cheese,
right?
You know?
Yeah,
and everyone goes, hey, don't order from here because it's quite literally Chuck E. Cheese. And you would think that these people would be like, don't stay here because it's actually the Cecil Hotel, but I guess not.
But no. So here we go. This time for another shot because this is where the cops, for the first time, bitch about quote unquote web sleuths, tink, and their involvement in everything. And we get back to the unemployed dental student who says he spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours because he's the co-founder of a discussion group on Facebook. And again, he says that like it's a job title. And there are several times throughout the course of watching this that I almost threw my remote through the TV. I'm not going to lie to you. That was one of them.
Some people take their hobbies very seriously.
I get it, but damn, dude. Like, come on.
So this is when people start talking about the different things in the video.
Here's where the conspiracy theories start. Yep.
In the elevator and what is happening. So
the first thing that I wrote down was that the timestamp was jumbled.
Yep.
Was obscured.
Yeah.
Yep. It was obscured.
And they noticed that 53 seconds was cut.
And it looks as though the footage is slowed down.
Oh, yeah, they said the footage was slowed down like 35%. And that based on what they could figure out, based on trying to interpret the timestamps that were jumbled, like 53 seconds were lost. I gotta be honest, when you actually look at it, it's not 53 seconds that were lost. It was like 3 seconds that were lost. But whatever.
That's
whatever.
what I thought too.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that I wanted to say though is that I watched this video a bunch of times, and they were talking about, this is before, like when she starts pressing all the buttons, the door does start to close.
And then she pushes buttons.
Just slightly. Yep. And then she hits a button and it opens back up.
Well,
and I thought it was.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, don't they say at the end, like,
they explain why. Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they explain why. Oh no, but nobody is like, oh, the door starts to close and then suddenly it opens.
That's my favorite part when we get there.
The door jerking 6 inches closed.
Yeah, when we get there, my favorite part is the debunking of all this.
People see what they want to see.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
So then we're at February 19th, so we're 19 days past the disappearance. We get back to our unfortunate, God bless these poor souls, the UK couple. They're like, oh my God, God, like there's a party in the room underneath us. At least that's how it sounds. There's all this weed smoke that's coming up through the vents in the bathroom. The water pressure sucks. The water's discolored. And like, this is like, we're brushing our teeth and this kind of crap. So like they get us to change room. So fine, we complain. They change rooms for us. But the room's still terrible. And like the water pressure is still bad. And so the manager says, hey,
drink and brush their teeth with the.
Here's the thing. Bottled water is a thing at this point.
It's 2013.
So why are you brushing your teeth, drinking the water, seeing it discolored and continuing to drink it, talking about how it tastes?
I don't know.
That it tastes sweet and weird.
Why did she keep this job 3 days after on her third day when they found her dead body?
You kept drinking it. Why were you doing that?
At some point in time, it's a little on you. At some point in time, it's a little on you. So yeah, they complain again, and they said, "Oh well, we'll get the maintenance guy to go take a look at it." So the maintenance, and I do. He is
Lopez. I love him,
dude. He is the stereotypical old Latino dude, like the old Latino grandpa that's like just got his job, and he really just wants to be left alone. Like you can just tell by the look on his face and the way he carries himself. He's like, am I really going to talk about this shit? Fine, I'll talk about this shit again. And he's like, yeah. So she tells me there's a water pressure issue. And then, I go and I check the pipes, and the pipes are fine. And then I got to go up to the roof because maybe there's something wrong with the water and the stupid tank is clogged. And he's like, so I got to climb up this ladder. And he's like, and then I climb up the ladder and I look in the tank and, oh shit. That's the girl we're looking
is.
for.
He
Yep.
said she looked like a ghost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens
A
when you're in
Blanca.
water. Mm.
Scary.
And so, and again, and here's the important thing that gets missed, because this becomes a major plot point later in this. And then he says he closes the tank hatch and goes to tell the manager
Mhm.
because he doesn't want anything else to happen. So yeah. So then 80 bajillion cops show up, as you would expect. Chaos and mayhem. They said, so she's naked. Her clothes are at the bottom of the tank. And honestly, the quote of this episode goes to the hotel manager, who again, there are a number of people through this episode that I want to punch in the throat. And for this one thing, this is her moment for a throat punch. When she's like, yeah, the guests were saying how disgusted they were, that they were like brushing their teeth and drinking the water and that kind of stuff. But how do you think it was like to work there when that was going?
Oh my.
Like, are you even remotely serious?
She also says that before she calls the police, she calls her mom
Called her mom.
to be like, hey, something bad just happened, so get ready. So that way, if you see this on the news, like, this is what's going on. And I thought that was very weird that she was like, I'm going to call my mom first. However, at the same time.
So here's what I didn't. Well, because they talk about how, she was raised like in the middle of nowhere. Like, I didn't know, like, was she calling her mom because that's her mom and she wants her mom to know that, hey, you're going to see some weird shit about me on the news and that kind of stuff? Or was her mom somehow hooked in with, I don't know, whoever was managing the property or something like that? Because I can't remember if we've already passed it, but at some point in time in here, she's never even worked at a hotel before.
Yeah.
Right.
And so suddenly she's the manager of this hotel under a $20-odd million, after a $27 million purchase. Wouldn't you want someone with experience? But if there's some nepotism involved.
She must have some background in like rebranding and marketing.
Yeah, I was going to say she could have like general managing experience and something similar that isn't necessarily like a hotel, but like she is like gone through rebranding something, because she said that she was brought in to fix the place up.
Right.
I mean, it could be nepotism, or it also could be nobody wants to work at the freaking Cecil Hotel.
I'm a web sleuth. I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work there.
Look into it.
Oh my god.
And so thus brings us the conclusion of episode 2.
Wait, I just want to talk about, before that, the media swarms the hotel. They interview the UK couple.
Oh yeah.
And they.
Oh yeah, because this was before the quote from the manager. Yeah.
They say that they drank the water, and then they're talking about it in the documentary, and it's like, I just like I feel gaggy for them. Like, I'm like, how do you ever recover from knowing that you drank dead body?
Yeah, I don't think you can.
How do you ever recover from that?
No, that's something like, dude, I would never, like, dude, I don't even know that I would trust bottled water. Like, I don't know how you get past that. Like, how do you step in a shower knowing you were bathing in dead body water? Like, how do you, like, I just,
body.
Yeah. Just
those poor people.
Yeah, I do. I feel super bad for them. So, and then we have episode 3, Down the Rabbit Hole. Ching ching.
Ching ching.
Okay, so armchair detectives, or as Dave says, web sleuths. Take a shot, Dave. Try to figure out what happened. And
also before that, so they go through the cops remove the body. And they decide they drain the tank, let her float to the bottom. They cut a hole in the side of the tank. They get her out that way. They dust for prints. They go all kinds, so there's no physical evidence. There's no prints to be found. There's nothing at the scene that leads them to believe that a crime has been committed.
And interest in the hotel goes through the roof.
Yeah. So I think it was that guy, the dental student, who was like, this ended in a way we didn't want it to end.
We all wanted her alive. I'm like, she's literally been gone for like almost a month, and you're like expecting her to be alive.
18 days.
Know she never left the hotel.
Yeah, 18 days. Yeah, no. And oh, by the way, you've been involved with this for like what, a week? Like you're like, dude, stop talking like you're her best friend. Like like that's that.
No one wanted it to end this way. Like you're not special. Like
Right. And so here's
not a hot take.
and this is where like the hypocrisy and the bullshit really shine through for me with these folks. Is they're like, we really wanted to just get to the bottom of this and find resolution and yada yada. Okay, so what do? You go stay at the hotel.
Yeah.
You start taking video of every goddamn second you're in the hotel and posting it, and trying to make it as dramatic as you possibly can, because it's all about the views and the clickety clicks. It's not about solving the case. It's about, ooh, look where I am. Look where
they exploit her death.
Absolutely.
100%.
So, so as Lauren mentioned, like people start going to the Cecil for this and taking video and going to the room she was at. Cecil Hotel bumps up security to try to keep these people at a minimum.
Well, and so I mean, the one good thing, so it was that it's the first dipshit, John Lorden, who says, okay, well, we went into the elevator, and oh, by the way, there's this button there that we see her push. And it's the hold door button. It says hold door. And so when you push the door hold button, the door stays open for 2 minutes. They timed it. So now there's no mystery.
She presses it twice.
Right. So now there's no mystery about why the door stays open. Like there's not, because they're like, oh, well, maybe there's somebody out in the hallway that she's looking at that keeps pushing the button, the call elevator button. Nope, it's the button that she pushed that opened it. So there goes that stupid theory.
So they start looking at, like, after she leaves the elevator, she turns left. And so they start looking at, what does left lead you to?
Well, first they figure out she's on the 14th floor. Like while they're doing other little button examinations, they're like, okay. Yeah. So
because when she presses the buttons, if you're on that floor, it doesn't light up.
It lights up, but it doesn't stay lit. Right. So they were like, so here we are on the 4th floor. If I push floor 4, it lights up, but it doesn't stay lit. So we know she's on the 14th floor.
Mm-hmm. So when you make a left out of the elevator and go down the hallway, you're taken to a big window that, if you push open, leads you to the fire escape. And so one theory of how she got up there is she climbed the fire escape, and then the fire escape leads you to a old rickety ladder.
Oh no! It's a normal fire escape to the 14th floor. Once you're on the 14th floor, then it is like when you're there, it is just that rickety ass ladder with no protective enclosure whatsoever up to the roof.
Right. If you fall, you're falling to your death.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's terrifying. And then the other way to get to the roof is an internal stairwell to the rooftop. But there is an alarm on the door that will lead you out to the roof. So
one of the web sleuths,
damn it,
says that,
and this is unemployed dental student,
says that that he kind of like leaned up against it and no noise was made. But I was like, unless you straight up opened up,
open the door,
right.
It's not going to go off, dipshit. Yeah,
right. He probably like touched.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, I'm sure. And then went. Woo!
One more time. Do it again. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, and it's really weird that these people are doing that, especially since I think that later on they say that they came there a couple of years after. So it's not like.
Oh yeah, because he was talking about how up through 2016, I think he said he's stayed there dozens of times.
Right.
For why?
Right.
Let it go.
Who wants to stay there?
Because they want to have something that they can be like, this is some creepy pasta bullshit.
They want to be connected to something that has, that's why I have him listed as dipshit number 2. So and now we get into the other conspiracy. Now we're back to the bookstore bullshit conspiracy theory.
Oh, wait, hold on. I have to say something about that too. But go ahead, Lindsay.
So another YouTuber goes up to the roof, and the roof is like littered with beer cans.
Well, but that's years later. So when they went up, that was years later they were
But
up
this
there.
is in the same segment.
Right, it's the same segment.
But
yeah,
she even says how it was years after.
But it's like obviously people were up there frequently, and if this like alarm goes off every time and stuff, how are these people getting up there?
Climbing up the fire
and
escape.
Graffiti and cigarette butts and bottles of beer and stuff. Well, all I'm saying is that clearly people are up there all the fucking time.
Right.
It's not like this one-off chance that she got up there. It's like this is happening all the time. And if they don't know that she got up there, then they don't know that these other people have gotten up there.
Right.
You know? So it just kind of like puts it in perspective that like it is possible that she could have gone this entire route without anyone ever knowing that she went up there.
Right. Yep.
Continue, Lindsay.
Oh no. I think Dave was gonna say something next.
Continue, Dave.
Sorry. So yeah, now we're into the bookstore bullshit. Where they get into oh my God, well, if you do a domain search on the last bookstore's website, then it comes up with an address that has a postal, like a zip code in Canada, and that zip code goes to where the cemetery that she just happens to be buried. And it's like you can't have all these coincidences, and you can't have, there's this thing called synchronicity. And they're like, well, maybe the guys from the bookstore killed her off. And they were like, and the cops are like, no, we checked the videos. They gave her the book and they left, and they never come back.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing, is that the police checked the door the day after she was found up there, and it was working just fine. And then they start looking for other guests who could be suspects. And like you were saying, the guys from the bookstores had dropped off a package, but otherwise had left. The lid itself for the container weighs 20 pounds to the water tank. So they were wondering how she could have gotten it closed. And she didn't drink or abuse drugs like we were talking about. And this is when she starts making statuses, or that they start looking at the statuses that she was making, saying things like, I don't want to live like this. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like she's kind of like suicidal thoughts.
She had thoughts of killing herself.
Right. Yeah. And that's when everyone starts saying like she wouldn't have been able to get the hatch back onto the tank to close it. And that's when all these web sleuths are saying that they start to conclude that there's someone else involved. And they do talk about, there's another person's foot and stuff in the video. And I've watched it, and it looks like her foot.
Right.
Every time I've seen it, I've looked at it, I'm like, that's her fucking foot.
Right. Absolutely.
They also talk about Jack Unterweger. I can't remember how to say his name, but he was like a journalist, and he's on an assignment to do a story on the red light districts in LA. But in reality, he's actually a convicted killer.
Oh yeah.
And is like murdering people in there.
Yeah.
The next thing that I have is we see Jason Tovar, the forensic pathologist.
Yeah.
And
2 days after her body was discovered, he's like a medical examiner that looks at her body. And he didn't immediately rule a cause of death because he wanted to wait for like toxicology reports to come back. And he said those sometimes take weeks, but there was a lot of pressure from the media and people to get answers, but he was like not going to rule without those toxicology.
Yeah, he wants all of the tests to come back before he can say there's no foul play.
Right.
Yeah. And 4 months later, people are speculating about how she was killed, and even thinking that the LAPD was like hiding something, and that there was more like peculiar things that could be happening. And this is where we're getting to what Dave was saying, is that they tried to like tie Elisa Lam to the movie Dark Water with fucking John C. Reilly. I love that motherfucker. Which is a movie that was made 10 years. Huh?
And Jennifer
Connelly.
Oh yeah.
I love her. Which was made 10 years before her disappearance. Now, I will say this. This entire thing is like, yeah, that probably isn't what happened, but the movie itself is about like a woman and her daughter, and they're like moving into this low income apartment, and they're like, the daughter dies in a water tank at the top.
The water turns dark.
Right, the water turns dark. She's wearing a red sweater like Elisa Lam was. So I get where people are making these coincidences. Exactly. There's a lot of coincidences. Okay, and they start to think that maybe somebody was like trying to like loosely
reenact the film.
I have written in all caps several times, coincidence is not causality. Dumbass.
Exactly. Another one that they were talking about was that she stayed there during the time where there was a tuberculosis outbreak. And I guess
I'm sorry,
like
I got distracted by a kid that needed Tylenol. Did you already talk about the coroner's findings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. The tuberculosis outbreak, and apparently the name of the test for the TB is literally Lam Elisa test.
Yep. Her name just flipped.
That is weird.
It is weird. I completely agree. Like these things are like, this is weird. But if, like you said, Dave,
surrounding that though, is that she was used as a biological weapon sent to reduce the homeless population in LA.
So the one thing there though is, so they get into, when they're talking about the cop conspiracy and how the cops have to be into it. The one girl, and I didn't even bother writing down her name. She's just like dumbass number 3. Is when they're talking about the police report and the autopsy report. They're like, well, the cops have it, but we don't. Dumbass, you're not a cop.
Right.
You don't. That it is not something you are entitled to or supposed to have.
Right. There's a weird. You're not privy to this information.
Right. So then.
So now it's a government conspiracy to infect the homeless. Yeah.
But and then also come to find out, the school that she went to, University of British Columbia, also has a tuberculosis research center, like pretty much world renowned. So again, just another really weird.
They're just weird coincidence. Yeah, it's like a happenstance that this is happening. Yeah. It's not like they're not tied together. This isn't like some biological warfare on these people.
Well, but here's the thing. And I think dumbass number 4 actually sums it up perfectly when she's talking about why she's so obsessed with it. That, because it's all about, you want to be the one to discover something that nobody else could.
Right.
Like you want to be the one that breaks the case. You want to be the one, again, you effing QAnon, the earth is flat people. You want to be that, something that nobody else does.
Okay, but here's the one thing I will say about that is that there are instances where these, like, I call them armchair sleuths and stuff, are like actually able to help break through these cases.
And they mentioned 4 cases where
it's like the Luca Magnotti or whatever case where it was literally solved before it was solved for like a year before it was solved by these people on a Facebook group who all dissected these videos and they were finding where these doorknobs were from, where these Afghan throw blankets were from, and finding this person and then contacting the police and being like, this is who you're looking for, and they're like, well, we don't know.
See, and I get that, but then you also have a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right.
And especially with as far as some of this shit went, and we're about to get into that. So that they get into the whole last bookstore thing. They discover, and this is where we meet this musician named Morbid.
Can I, before we move on to, can I also say Michelle McNamara, Golden State Killer? She was an art detective.
Yep.
And yeah. So like, I mean, some actually do the research and know their shit.
Well, but I would say, but it's like when you're saying, so, okay, but that's an individual. Like it's so easy for this stuff to turn into mob mentality, which is what we're about to dive into a little bit here.
Yeah. But also I have to say is what's so funny about these conspiracy people that always think like there's a governmental cover up is like how little trust they have in the government, but at the same time show that they think that the government is capable of like running these huge cover-ups.
Dude, the government couldn't even keep a blowjob secret. Like that's what I keep coming back to. Like if you can't believe that the government couldn't keep a blowjob secret and yet masterminded 9/11. Like those two, they just don't match.
Right.
With the morbid thing, we're still talking about that, right?
Oh, we haven't even started yet, but yeah.
Okay, cool. With the morbid thing, I thought it was like really interesting, like all these other conspiracies that they were like talking about. I'm like, okay, I can see where you were getting this. I can see where you're getting that. They're so closely tied together. When they start talking about morbid, there's like a video where there's this girl running for her life until she's murdered. And
okay, but she's running through the woods, not through a hotel.
And it's very vaguely connected. Like it's not even really connected, but it's kind of vaguely connected. And then the second video where he has blood on his face, there's a picture of the Black Dahlia behind him, Ted Bundy. These are not things that are connected. And then they say that they find another one about a girl dying in water. And he says, I'm thinking China. And
okay, so that's episode 4.
And wait, I'm literally following the same notes that I have. I'm sorry. So you guys go ahead.
I was like, I think that's episode 4.
Well, we're moving into episode 4. There was nothing else in episode 3, really.
Oh no! The last note I have on episode 3 was when dumbass number 4, the long blonde haired girl was like, "How can this all be coincidence?" Well, it can because it is. Like as we're gonna find out, it can all be coincidence because it's all just coincidence. And so the morbid thing. So it's all these idiots online saying that he's the one that killed her. They start harassing him.
He says, I'm thinking China in this like video, and then they're like, well, she's Chinese.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and he's gonna leave a body in the ocean. Oh, well, she died in water.
Right. But the ocean is not just like a tank on top of a fucking hotel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's like those cold reading psychic dipshits that are like, oh, I'm seeing water nearby. Dude, everybody's near water. Like you could die. Like there could be, if there's a water a half a mile away, you're gonna go, see, I told you there was water nearby. That was whatever.
So people start sending him death threats. They're saying things to him like you were at the hotel at the same time. He was actually there a year earlier.
So they find his real name, Pablo Vergara. And they start like just going nuts on him, and then they take a quick break because the coroner gets the tox results back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy's like, look, there's I'm sorry, episode 4 is titled The Hard Truth. And so the tox results, there's no drugs in her system or booze, like no party, or I should say there's no party drugs in her system. There's no alcohol in her system. There's only her prescription medication in her system, but they're at very low levels.
Can we get a button that we press that does the Law and Order dun dun every time that we're doing this, please?
I could totally make that happen.
Okay, cool. I would love that. But yes, her toxicology report.
Sometimes.
What?
Huh?
I use that in my classroom sometimes.
The chung chung.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so they say not only are the levels of the medication in her body really low, but the pill counts, because again, her prescription bottles, her prescriptions were found in her belongings from her hotel room. The pill counts are higher than they should be based on the prescription date and how many she should have taken.
So suggesting she wasn't taking her bipolar medication.
Well, and then they flip back to her Tumblr, where she says she hates taking all these drugs. And they start, okay, so was this something where she was trying to prove something to herself, where, you look like you were going to jump in. So I shut up for a sec.
No, sorry. You're right. I also just like in this part, I learned things about bipolar disorder that I didn't know.
Same.
And, and how it presents itself in so many different ways. And one thing that
and there are different levels of it.
Dr. Ho,
yeah,
was that bipolar you can experience. Obviously, we know the mania aspect, but risk taking is part of it. So I thought that was just really interesting.
I also wrote that down, so I'm happy that you said that, because when she said higher risk taking was like a thing, I was like, well, then maybe she would be willing to go out onto a rickety ladder.
This creepy ass ladder with no support. Yeah.
Like this is something that could have explained something that she was doing. Right. And that she was also struggling with her medications, that she had at least 4 of them.
Right.
So
I believe 5. if I recall correctly. I want to say there were
Sure,
5 pills in there.
Like
Yeah.
I know that she had at least 4. So if she might have had 5, she might have had fucking 10 for all I care. But it's like
off your medication, when you're on medication like that, going off of it suddenly is not good for your brain.
Oh no, that's a rough ride.
It's a very rough ride. Yeah.
This is when they start talking about how she would write letters to the other girls in the room that she was staying with. Like,
oh yeah, so like this is the first time we start hearing about that last few days of hers and her actual behavior.
She starts saying things like "go away" or "get out," or that she wanted a password.
She's leaving post-it notes. She's leaving post-it notes on their beds because, again, she's staying in a room with bunk beds, but she's leaving post-it notes on their beds with things like "get out," "go home," "go away." When they try to get back in the room, she's got it bolted and locked from the inside so they can't get in, and she wants them to give her a password to get in. And so they decide that maybe a single room is better for her. Maybe.
Right.
So also while she's in LA, she goes to a live audience production.
Yep.
And she, I guess, wrote this long rambling letter to the host of the show.
Oh, I missed this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gave it to security to basically pass on.
Well, no, gave it to one of the PAs and said and demanded that they give it to the host. And the PA was like, security.
Yeah. Yeah. And so security escorted her out, basically thinking that she was a risk.
Right.
Or a danger.
Yeah. And then the manager says she acts weird in the lobby, where she said she does this weird gesture, like probably threw her arms up or something, and says, I'm crazy, but so is LA. Okay.
And I'm like, that's true though. Yeah. Sounds like my kind of party.
Yeah.
And then I said, hotel ignores this because crazy people be crazy sometimes.
Because it's the Hotel Cecil. Like that, dude, that's I'm surprised she even remembered that. Like with the shit that she said, like, how do you even remember? Like, that's okay. Like that's brunch on a Tuesday. Like that. And so then they dive in with the cops. And they were like, okay, so look, in order to, if somebody had killed her or knocked her unconscious and wanted to hide her body in the water tank, because she was in the back corner tank. So you would have had to, while carrying a body, walk across these tiny ass little pipes and balance your way back there, then climb up the ladder, open the hatch, dump the body in, and then make your way back down. Or like there was that building
squeezing between the tanks.
Oh yeah.
Like or the one that she was in, you'd have to like squeeze between them to get to it.
Or if there was a building off to the side and you could have gone up the ladder on the side and maybe gone down that way. But even the cops were like, there's no way. Because again, they found no contusions, no bruising, no anything. There's no way. It's not physically possible that somebody could have carried her body up a ladder and not caused some kind of damage to her body.
The other thing too that they mention is that when they find her, she's turned upwards. She's floating.
She's face up. Yep.
And that's unusual, especially if somebody was like dumping a body.
Yeah. Well, they say even most drownings, you wind up face down.
Yeah, face down.
Yep.
But they do explain in this episode that with the water going in and out of the tank, that
could have turned her over. Yep.
Actually have turned her over. And there's really no suspicious evidence that they find on the roof to indicate that there was anyone else involved with her, like at least being in the tank.
Yep.
So
on June 21st, so I mean, here we are 4 months after her body's found. The coroner's reported it's an accidental drowning, and her bipolar condition was a contributing factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, of course, the YouTubers don't believe it.
Hold up.
They know everything.
The web sleuths don't believe it.
So this was I hated this. So we see a video of John Lorden, and he's like pointing to the fact that there was no evidence of sexual assault.
So my note here is now we have nerds reading autopsies.
So he was like, but why was she naked? And I was like, because when you're drowning, you take your clothes off. Like, you freaking idiot. Like, your clothes weight you down. What are you going to do? You're going to try to throw them off when you're drowning, you moron. That's why she was naked.
Exactly.
And again, and they keep bouncing around all the other, and they're all like, oh, there's more LAPD conspiracy bullshit.
Yeah.
Because why haven't we seen the police files? Why haven't we seen this? But because again, you're not a cop.
Right.
There's nothing, you are not entitled to everything the police knows. That's not how this works. And so, so like, they're like, okay, no. So this was a conspiracy between the LAPD, the coroner's office, the hotel manager, and the maintenance guy. Again.
Poor Santiago.
Who just wants to be left alone.
He's like the first person that they try and be like, it might be him, and then they're like, just kidding, it's not.
Right,
him.
it's not it's not the old Mexican man. No, it's not.
It's the first person, because everyone's like, well, the only people that can get there are security. The only people that can do this are security, and he's like the first person you interview. So.
And all the people that have left all the beer bottles and cigarette butts up there, just now,
right.
And just
but no one else has been up there.
Right. But then they do a deep dive interview with Morbid. They come back to him, and this is where, dude. I feel so bad.
Wait.
I agree.
I agree with this, but
I agree with you. But I also wanted to say that when they were coming through the medical examiner report, they find that undetermined was initially marked on the report. But changed to accident, and it says error, and then there's like a date scribbled next to it. So they're pointing to this as like somebody forced him to change it.
See, I summed that up with more
and
LAPD conspiracy
3
shit.
days later, that's the problem.
Right, just to do this. And I was like, okay, well, it's not uncommon to make clerical errors. And then I wrote Occam's razor.
Well, and so not only that, but so here, like getting even back to the earlier episode with the earlier point with the coroner, like 2 episodes ago, he even says the first time they filed it as undetermined. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder it, like, I'm not taking another shot, but I'm not a web sleuth, so I don't know. Like, I don't know how that works. Like, do they only file one autopsy report and then just make addendums as needed?
No, because they have to file the first one and then they go back
and then make changes.
Evidence.
Right. So, like, to me, it's right. He even said 2 episodes ago, we didn't know what happened, and now we do.
Right. The thing about the whole Morbid thing is, like, Pablo Vergara, I think is his name.
Yep.
So he was harassed and everything, and eventually he makes this video.
Now I want to know if he's related to Sophia.
Yeah, actually. He eventually makes this video proclaiming his innocence, and people don't necessarily believe it because he's using a voice modulator and he's wearing a mask.
Well, so here's the worst part is by this point, like every jackass online is flooding his inbox with, I can't believe you killed her. Just, we're coming to get you.
Yeah, what did you
better
do?
Hide yourself. He said Mexico's version of the FBI comes to his house and interviews him. And he's like, and of course, there's no charges filed. Why were there no charges filed? Because the video that everybody was saying, oh, look, he was there at the Cecil Hotel, was from a year before Elisa Lam was at the Cecil Hotel.
He has a contract that he was signing, like the day
he was
that they
working
were, like,
on his music.
He was out of country.
He has contracts. He has passport stamps. He has stuff from him being in the goddamn studio.
And people are starting to move on, but they never apologized to him. And now I'm so sad though, because like, even though I probably wouldn't have listened to his music, he doesn't do music anymore.
Well, and he tried to kill himself.
Right.
Dude, and because of all that, like, so they went through and they flagged all of his accounts and shit. Dude, he lost his YouTube channel, he lost his Facebook profile, he lost his Gmail accounts. And like, as a musician trying to make it out there, like, that's how you connect with people. So not only are they attacking him personally, but they're killing him off professionally too.
Right. Even though they have zero to go off of.
Right.
It's very sad to see that he doesn't do anything anymore, and I hope that if he ever sees this, which I'm sure he won't, but if he ever does, get back into that shit, dude.
Yeah.
And this is where I wrote down that not all web sleuths are helping, and sometimes what you're doing is actually hindering people from being able to know the truth because you're like throwing out conspiracies.
It's a witch hunt. And
see, whereas I summed that up with LAPD discusses web dumbasses.
Right. But it's like, as much as I appreciate like armchair sleuths and stuff, because we have had experiences where people have really, really made an impact, a positive impact on helping to find out what happened to people, whether it's from them going missing or being murdered, or just generally speaking. It's like we've had people that have actually done really, really good work and have helped a lot and helped like tremendously for these things. But that's not always. Just because you think you know what's going on doesn't mean that you have all of the information. There are police officers out there that are hiding things from the public because people knowing those things might actually stop them from being able to convict the person that they're really after.
Which we talked about with the Night Stalker doc and why they were so pissed off at Feinstein when she held that press conference.
Yes.
Because she gave away the caliber of weapons. She gave away the unique shoe print. She gave away all that crap.
Had this been a situation where it actually was a homicide in some way, then those people might have hindered this moving forward. Well,
so and that's what the detective talks about. Is he's like, I get it. Like he's like, it's dude, you get it, and he even says he's like, you get addicted to it. There's a rush that's associated with, thinking you're the one that's cracking the case and that kind of stuff. And he's like, and the sad reality is in this case, they were just getting further and further from the truth.
Yes.
And he's like, and that, to your point, he said, the thing you have to understand, we don't tell people everything.
Right.
He's like, and with good reasons. And then he said, and part of the problem was like when they first talked to the family, the family didn't tell them about her mental health issues and her medication and all that kind of stuff. The next
thing I have written down is about how she has a history of not taking her medication.
Yeah, the sister came forward. Yeah.
She's had episodes before where at least on one occasion she had been hospitalized.
Yep.
She was like having delusional thoughts and hallucinations. Severe bipolar 1, which can cause hallucinations and cause people to act erratically.
Yeah, and Dr. Ho actually talks about like when you see her in the video, her behavior is consistent with somebody who's having a psychotic.
Yep.
And she, like Lauren was just saying, is she has had paranoia, delusions, hallucinations, and sometimes the voices that you hear are telling you really scary things that might make you
want to hide
like she did. Yeah.
Well, that's what she and her sister even said, like when she's had this happen before, she does get scared and she goes and hides under beds and she goes and hides in closets and that kind of stuff because of what she sees and hears. So, I mean, it's not like this is, but again, they didn't know this at the start. And they get into, hey, you know what? Yeah. So if she climbs into the tank, okay, great. If the tank is full, sure, you can reach up and you can probably, you can reach the lid and you can get back out. But if there's been people taking showers and stuff, the levels in the tank are lower and you're stuck.
And if you're of sound mind and body, yeah, you probably wouldn't climb into something like that. But if you think that you're being followed, if you think that there's somebody telling you to do things to harm others or yourself, you might try and get away from that. And especially if you really honestly believe that this person is like an actual person, like physical person, and you're trying your best to just try and move as far away from that as possible. It's not, as much as this is like a very weird thing to happen, and yes, it's very creepy and oh my God, how terrible.
It's weird for us that don't deal with it day to day.
Mysterious.
Yeah.
This isn't something that is unheard of for people to do. It might be unheard of for somebody to like jump into a tank, but it's not unheard of for people to try and get away from something that isn't there.
Well, so and that was like that. Some of the YouTube dipshits that they were talking to earlier, he was like, oh, the one guy was like, oh, well, I've never heard anything about someone with a bipolar disorder doing anything like this. Okay, well, you're not a clinical psychologist. You're a dipshit on YouTube.
And you haven't heard of every single bipolar history.
It's not your job to understand this. And so and then they get into the whole, like you were just saying, like, she might have undressed to stay afloat once she was in there because your clothes are heavy. She might have started.
They also talk about hypothermia. And
And
then the
I think it's called paradoxical. Shit, I forget what it's actually, but there's it's paradoxical something where even though you're freezing to death, you think you're too hot, and so you start taking your clothes off.
Strip off your clothes, yeah.
Well, they were also even saying that, just like generally speaking, like the temperature of the water and things like that might have even helped with the decaying process and
Yep.
how quickly she decays and all that stuff. And these are all things that you have to take into consideration.
Mhm.
And I think that they even said, like, people want answers today. They want answers right now. And some of these things, some of these tests that they have to run can take months and months and months to come back before they can say, this is exactly what happened to this woman. You know, and I understand the need for answers at this moment, but it's impossible.
It
And when
doesn't
you
work
have
that way.
people that want answers so badly, they will come up with any and every situation to try and create that answer. And when you have other web sleuths that are out there and all they're seeing is someone else's take on what happened, you're basically like implanting this seed of something that isn't even true into their mind. And now you have a whole bunch of people that are like built on this conspiracy without any hard evidence, without any facts.
Oh yeah, I think one of the best memes that I've seen in the past month or so was it's real easy to believe in a conspiracy if you don't understand how shit actually works.
Right.
But so, and then, you know, the detective, he even gets into, okay, yeah, the time code on the video was obscured. Why? Because we didn't want to release the exact time that she was in the elevator, because we wanted to, because if we can prove that somebody else was on the floor at that time, then we know somebody else was there. So yeah, when we released it, we obscured the video. They were like, hey, guess what? Yep, the video was slowed down. Why? So you could get a better look at her face, because we were trying to get help identifying her and maybe helping people recognize her and if they had seen her. So I mean, it, you know, and I actually felt a little bad for the cop, for the one detective who he was just like, look, guys, no, we didn't check the tanks. Like, the dogs didn't hit over there, and I get it. Like, she was in there the whole time. And I feel
he seemed very distraught with the fact that he was like, we thought that there was no reason to check the tanks because there was no evidence of anyone being up there.
Yep.
You know, there was nothing out of the ordinary. There was nothing that they were like, oh, yep, okay, let's check the tanks. You know, like the dogs didn't hit. Nothing is going on.
So then September of 2013, her parents file a wrongful death suit against the hotel. And of course, you've got web sleuth dumbass number one, who like goes to, because he wants to see if he can find out anything more. And like one by one, basically all of the points that the family's attorney is bringing up are shot down. You know, he's like, oh, you know, there's too much risk on the roof. You should do more to keep people out of there. They're like, well, dude, we put signs up that say employees only. We put an alarm on the door. We do that. You know, we can't not have the fire escapes open because people have to have access to those. And so that case was ultimately dismissed in favor of the hotel. Yeah.
And then the big thing at the end, which is Santiago.
Yep.
When he found her, the lid to the hatch was open. And all this time, the police said it was closed when they went up there, because when Santiago found her, the lid was open. He saw her.
He closed the lid. Yep.
And then goes and tells Amy. And this was like the one thing that everyone was clinging to. How did that lid get back on top? And it was the simplest answer.
Right.
Santiago.
But everyone wanted to have this other reason, you know, and it was reported that it was closed because it was closed. But nobody bothered to even ask him, like, was this open before, or did you know what I mean? Nobody.
Yeah, because the question that was asked was the hatch open when the police got there? Nope.
And he straight up says
it was closed when the police got there.
But Santiago, when they asked him, was it open? And he goes, yeah.
And then they get into the whole, and then you've got the whole, like, basically all the backing off that the dumbasses do, that, oh, well, had we known that, we'd have never done anything. When like, and this is the sad reality, like, again, remote through the TV screen several times, like, as you're watching them, it's no different than all the conspiracy bullshit that you see floating. Like, it's like, I'm just saying, what if this was a thing? And then like, and putting forward these outlandish theories about shit without ever coming back and owning it. Like, not one of them.
Yeah.
Like all of those people that sent those hateful messages, to that morbid guy, that not one of, he's like, and he even at the end, he's like, no, nobody ever reached out to me and said, I'm sorry. Nobody ever reached out to me and said I was wrong.
I'm surprised he's not able to sue them individually.
Right. For like slander,
libel. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything. That poor guy.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him.
I feel bad for him too. He said, like, what I practice, what I do is an art. Like,
Yep.
This is how I express myself. I'm drawn to the darker side of life. Like, it's just a performance.
And ain't nothing wrong with that.
Dude, we've all been to City Club.
That doesn't mean you're a fucking murderer.
Right.
We've all had our goth stage.
Right. We've all been to City Club. We've all gone to Kink Ball. But yeah, I mean, that's, and so, I mean, and literally, I mean, so at the end of the day, 4 episodes and 4 hours later, at the end, it's girl goes out for meds, climbs in a tank, and winds up dead, which is sad, and it's tragic, and that's terrible. But this could have been at least 2 episodes shorter.
You know what, though? Here's the thing that I'm glad that they hit on is the problem with Skid Row. And because
yep.
I feel like, we need to shed light on how we treat homeless people, how we treat people with mental illness who don't have a support system, how we treat people just coming out of jail, all of that. Like, our systems need to do better. We shouldn't look at them as the problem. Like, our systems are the problem. Setting up a Skid Row as a dumping ground for these people.
Quite literally, yeah.
So it's like, I'm glad that they did take time within this documentary to address this. And, just feeling compassion for, people with bipolar disorder and understanding, like, it does present itself in different ways. And if you see someone acting like this, they could be in the middle of a psychotic break, and maybe you need to get them help. Maybe they need
call their parents. Call.
Right. So, and that was part of the parents' lawsuit is, okay, well, even if you ignore the risk of the roof, you should have known that she was acting weird and needed help. And the hotel manager's like, okay, so, like, how far do I go?
No, and that is true. Like, whose responsibility is it? Right. And at what point? She didn't appear to be a danger, really,
to herself or to anyone else.
Right.
Who would have predicted that was going to be her next step? I mean, I'm not saying responsibility lies on anyone else, but it's just, if we had better systems in place, maybe, like, the whole defund the police, they definitely made the wrong slogan for that. But, if we had, like, mental health care workers in the police, that this woman could have called and been like, I think this lady might be having a psychotic break. She's acting really weird, whatever. Maybe she could have gotten help. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's things that we need to think about.
Right.
It's, and that's the thing. I mean, like, there are, and that's the thing. And to me, there was that, and there was that whole, like, guys, don't be overzealous. Like, that whole, be careful what you get into online. Cause I mean, that's the thing is, like, all of them, tried to backpedal really hard in at the end of the episode.
Agreed.
But yet none of them ever said I was wrong. None of them ever said I went too far with this. None of them ever said, hey, you know what? I was trying to build, because the dipshit number one even said, I launched my YouTube channel because of this case.
Yeah.
So now, like, I didn't like.
Yeah, he was looking for content.
Exactly.
And then found the Elisa Lam.
And
it was a game for them, and they ended up ruining
someone's life. Yeah.
Guy's life and exploiting her death and making it seem like
with
it was
no repercussions whatsoever.
No.
And I have to like draw this back over. Remember when I was talking about Luca Magnotti or whatever? Yeah. They did something similar with that guy. They were like, they found a guy that they thought was him. Mm-hmm. They started messaging him like, we know it's you, all this bullshit. He ended up killing himself.
Oh.
So it's like, these are things that you can't just be like, we decided, and then go after somebody. Right. If you really think that there's somebody that's involved in something and you want to like help out with that, send all the information to the police. Don't take it upon yourself.
Right.
Because when you're wrong, you're very, very wrong. And you have exposed this person to being bullied, to being, completely shred apart.
Well, and that's
because there are keyboard warriors, and that's exactly what they do. They live for that. They literally go around and fuck these people's worlds up. That's what
he was saying.
Where they live. They find out who their mom is, who their dad is. They will send all of this information as though it's fact to everybody in their lives.
And that's what he was saying. The one thing he said was like, God, he's like, when you get thousands of messages every day telling you, because he said, he's like, his whole thing started when he got a message from a friend that said, hey, what did you do? Why are you on the news?
Yeah.
And he clicks through to some like news channel out of Taiwan, and it's him being accused of being a murderer. And he's like, and then that escalates. He's like, when you get thousands of messages a day telling you that you're worthless, telling you that you're a murderer, he's like, it breaks you down. And he said, and again,
telling you to kill yourself.
He tried to kill himself. Like, that's a real thing.
Yeah. That's horrific. But overall, I enjoyed it. I agree. It could have been a little less.
Yeah. Like I said,
not a lot.
This could have been 2 episodes and that'd have been fine.
Sure. I am happy that they touched down on like a lot of things. Like, we needed a documentary that would say like, hey, web sleuths are cool, but also be careful of what you're doing, because you are affecting not only these people's lives, but our actual investigation.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said, I mean, I'm glad they did get into that a little bit, where like, hey, you know what, you're just getting further and further from reality. And hey,
we have had so many people that have done great things, but we've also had people that have done really terrible things. And there's a very fine line there. And it's like, we need to make sure that when we start accusing people of stuff, we know exactly what we're talking about before we do. So it's sad that Elisa Lam passed away, especially under the circumstances that she did. But, this was something that we all kind of needed to see to like be able to understand the whole entire web sleuth thing. But on top of that, just understanding bipolar and how that works. And a lot of people don't know,
Well, I think a lot of good info was in there. I mean, like Lindsay was saying, like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have no idea what Skid Row is, or how vast it is, or how many people are affected by it, or the fact that it was planned by the city to be that way, and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it absolutely had its positive points. Don't get me wrong. I'm still sticking to my guns on it. Could have been 2 episodes.
Totally. Well, I feel like that's a conclusion for this entire thing. I'm so happy that everyone came on to watch, and we don't have anything planned for the next documentary thing yet. We'll get back to you guys and let you know. But this was definitely one that both of us really love to watch. All 3 of us love to watch. Even love to hate it. And I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, these are always entertaining.
We'll let you guys know what we're watching next time. Tune in next week. We'll cover 90 Day Fiancé. We'll figure out what we're going to be doing for our documentary. We'll let you guys know about that, so you have plenty of time to catch up with us. And then we'll be back for the next documentary as well.
Cool.
Thanks, Documentary Dave, for coming on. and
It's what I'm here
treating us
for.
to Your presence. Lindsay, do you have anything else to say?
I'm good.
All right. Well, we love you guys all. Thank you so much for checking us out, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.